Yeah, and I think that's going to be a big theme of this game is, the defensive end and what these teams are capable of. And I talked to, like I mentioned earlier, Curtis Mitchell this past week, and he said that they've really upped their defensive game, and this full court pressure is a part of that. So I think we're going to see a lot of defensive efforts from both sides, but that could also result in a lot of fouls, and we've already seen that for the Generals, who are usually a low fouling team, but they've already gotten, I think, 3 team fouls.
Yep, the Generals have 3 team fouls. Macon has 2. Clayton Murtha has 2 free throws coming. And Murtha against Emory and Henry a couple days ago went 7 for 7 from the free throw line, which was very nice to see.
It's nice to see because we have seen him struggle this past season from the free throw line. So it's a huge, he's someone who goes to the foul line often, and when he's 100% from the foul line, that can add a lot of points to the scoreboard for us.
Murtha did miss the first free throw. He's a 56% free throw shooter. And the next one hits the front rim and no good.
And like we said, that's a lot of points left on the glass that we could use. Yeah, we talked about it before this game. Their defense is really strong, and that's something that is going to challenge us offensively. They held us to only 75 points the last time we saw them on the floor, and a huge point of that game was Clayton Murtha he was limited to 5 points, and Clayton's averaging 18.9 points per game, so that was really difficult for us to lose that big scoring ability from Clayton. So if we can get Murtha involved and keep our scoring like it was this past week, I think that we will have a good chance of winning here. But again, we cannot underestimate Randolph-Macon's defense. It is really strong, and it really limits teams to low points. And I mean, I think that's just the beast of what a long season is. You hit this point in the season where you really have to choose to be mentally focused and mentally engaged. And I think every sport experiences that in volleyball. We always know that, once midterms roll around, that's when it gets to be really hard and people have to stay focused and engaged. And, I think they're experiencing that a little bit, that, we're just hitting this point in the season that you have to choose to work hard and know that it's going to be hard to, pull through and pull wins at this point in the season. And on the same note of driving towards the basket, Emma Redding with 9 points, we saw them feeding her a lot. Inside especially. Some other stats, Katie Pop with 3. Another player we haven't really seen, and I'm looking at it now, she only played 9 minutes, and I'm not exactly sure why, but Taylor Casey is someone who is a really influential player for the Generals. 0 for 2 from the floor. I haven't really seen her, but obviously Emily Persick is making up for a lot of that on the outside. Do you think it's just not really getting the ball to her? I haven't really seen her hold on to it much.
No, again, she hasn't been a factor in this game, really, it feels like. So hopefully she can get going in the second half. Her and Katie Pop, I mean, it's not rare that the two of them will combine for only 3 points at a half. So hopefully they can get going. And alongside Persick and Emma and some of the other players who we've seen hit some big shots, this Generals offense can get back on track in the third.
And some other stats for you. Andy Carandi with 2 after the first half. Andy Smithy 2. Molly Mann and Aaron Hughes both tallying 3 points apiece, and Aaron Hughes with 2 as well. On the Hollins end, one name that came up a lot, Cheslin Owens, number 32. She has 10 points in the first half, and another one, Elsie Hill, is another name that came up a lot with 6. And combined, they seem to be really leading this offense for Hollins and creating a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, Hill's been a real menace on the boards. Had a couple putbacks, including an and one. So she's been really impressive. And Owens, is the one player on this Hollins team that looks like she can really create her own shot off the dribble or catch and shoot. So she's a player the Generals really need to lock down. And if they can, I think they can really hold this Hollins offense in check.
And what's interesting about Cheslin Owens, not only is she a high-scoring player, but pretty consistent, 5 for 7 from the floor. That's pretty good shooting percentage. Some other stats, Sydney Strange tallying 3 for Hollins, and Taylor Broyles 4, Dina Campbell 3. So kind of, a lot of players getting involved here. And then in the first quarter, they were 23.1 from the floor. Second quarter, like we mentioned, they did a lot better, 47.4 from the floor, for a combined 37.5% shooting percentage in that first half, matched to 39.5% for the Generals. So kind of similar shooting percentages, but just seems like the Generals are getting more opportunities, especially with Persick being very confident on the perimeter.
Yeah, and this Generals team out-rebounded Hollins in the first quarter 16-6, but Hollins out-rebounded the Generals in the second quarter 13-10. So Hollins seemed to have found their rhythm a little bit, and the Generals stalled. So again, hopefully this Generals team can start the half in rhythm with that energy we saw in the first quarter and really take control of this game.
About 15 seconds till we start the clock here in the second half. Looks like same starting lineups are out here for both teams. And Andy Carandi will take this at center court as she passes it off to Emily Persick.
Again,
Seems a little frantic for the Generals right now. I think they just need I think this was a good call to have this timeout here just to reset. Also, a lot of high passes, not only on that possession, but I feel like the possessions prior to that as well, there was a lot of high passes, crazy looks, but I do think the pace was a little fast. And Macon is 3 for 5 from the 3-point line, and I think that's something, like you said, they're not used to putting up huge offensive numbers, but that's good to see for them on their side of things. Also, in the beginning, Washington and Lee, not a lot was falling for them, so the fact that we're already back to 46.2% from the field, I was watching the live stats. There was a little while there that we were very low 30s, so we've definitely made a lot more shots going into the second part of the first half. Yeah, we were talking about it before this game even started about how, this is a historically really strong program, and knowing that you are a strong program and you have made NCAA appearances, that kind of gives you, although your record may not be as strong as others in the ODAC, it kind of gives you a leg up in that you have more confidence driving your program. And, I'd say looking at the past, 15 years, WNL is the underdog compared to Virginia Wesleyan. Well, especially at the D3 level, being a senior who's made it this far all 4 years is a big deal. You have a lot of athletes who do choose to stop playing or doesn't make it through the 4 years. So it's a big deal to have these 3 seniors here. And, it's important to honor them and, play hard for your seniors. And I was talking to Curtis Mitchell this past week, and he said that, it's really important to give these guys the send-off that they deserve in a game that they deserve because they're such hard workers. And I do think that these players, these 3, are really hard workers and do deserve all the praise. And you could really see it from the reactions he was having on the court. Like, he was getting very fired up, and deservedly so. He had a great game, great way to end his regular season senior career, and I think he really deserves it. Like I said, he's a really hard worker and someone who a lot of the younger players can look up to.
Nicholas George, 14 points. McMillan, 14. Denon with 10 points from the bench, including a couple of threes. Alex Starr, 8 points. Kern, 7 points, 7 assists. On the other hand, Randolph-Macon had their scores, but foul trouble really came to bite them there in the end.
Yeah, they had 3 really solid players sitting for a pretty long extended period of time, especially when you had such a close game. You can't afford to have those players sitting on the bench, and that's when the Generals were able to capitalize and kind of garner this 10-point lead over the Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets. So I think that having those players in foul trouble really hurt them, especially going into this last 10 minutes of the second half.
Dina Campbell will take that shot and won't quite make it as Andy Carandi gets that rebound. Emily Perzik wide open. Ooh, I'm surprised she didn't take that 3. But she'll drive it towards the basket and make the layup.
And you're absolutely correct about saying Randolph-Macon is not going to take this game lightly, especially with an NCAA bid on the line. Especially when we're in volleyball season, it's all about getting that bid into NCAAs, whether you win the conference championship or not. So they're definitely not going to take this game lightly because a loss could risk that automatic bid into the NCAA.
Couple threes early on, but nothing doing for the Generals.
And that's one thing that we really need to see today is those threes doing well. We have picked up our confidence outside the arc, but it's a little slow start here.
Lewis almost took too many steps, almost slipped his pivot foot. 5 on the shot clock for Kearns. He has to pull up and shoot. Does. The three-pointer is no good.
If anyone could make that shot with pressure in his face, though, that would be Devin Kearns.